credit limit. He's in Scotland. His name is Connor, which is a Scottish name, and his first name is Mohammed, which is not a Scottish name. But that may be quite legitimate. I can't tell just by looking at the data. All I can say is perhaps that is unusual. I should go and check who that person is. Okay. Show me the documentation behind it. Okay. Happy so far. I'll close down my duplicates. I've left them over here so that I can simply click on them and they're back, but I'm back in my customer database again. Okay. If I look at that, it looks okay at the moment, but I may wish to move things around, exactly the same as anything else in Window. If I go into the line and I get a double arrow and click on it, I can give myself a bigger customer number or slide it back. If I wish to change the order, I want the country first. If I click in the country and hold it, then I can move it across. Okay. Now, what you're doing is changing what the view of the data is. You are not changing the data file. Okay. Critical element for IDEA, for ACL, for any of these programs is that it must not change the original live data. So all I'm changing is what it looks like on the screen, not the actual data file itself. The same thing if I extend that, I'm changing the length of it on the screen, not the length of the data field. If you do it within something like Excel and then save, you've actually extended the size of the field. So we haven't done that. Again, if I want to move it back, I can simply take it back to where it was. Okay. So you might want to try it and try moving things around. Try taking the credit limit column and shifting it next to the last name. Remember what you're trying to do? First time you click on it, it will simply highlight. If you click and try and drag, it will highlight 2 or 3. So I simply want to click on credit limit once to highlight it. Then I can click and drag. Okay. Are we happy? Okay, again, let's go in and have a look at some of our database properties over here. Let's go and have a look at our field statistics. Okay. And we've got all of the information regarding the numeric fields only. I could say I want date fields, I want time fields. In this case, I want the numeric fields. And you can see there we've got 341 records. We've got number of 0 items of 0. Our average value has now been plugged in, as has the minimum and the maximum. Okay. So if you want to have a look at which was the minimum, if you remember, if I click on that, there's my person in Finland who had the high value. And I could print that if I was particularly interested. Or I could say, show me the one with the lowest value, and these are all of the people who got that low value. And I could print those off. So if we have a whole stack of customers with high values, high balances, high discounts that they're getting or whatever, I can simply go and pick discounts and then click on it, and there they are. So I don't need to do anything else. I don't need to do anything fancy. These are all the people who are getting the high credit limits in this case, or the high discounts, or have the high account balances, or have the high salary, and I can simply say print that, and that will give me a printed list. which I can then go and say, can you explain why these people have got this high discount rate or this high balance or whatever they happen to be. Okay. Again, we can have a look at the number of records. Okay. And we're only sitting with that one. And once we're happy with that, now we can go back and start looking at our data again. So if I go back into data, and this time what I want to do is I want to take that data and I want to do some sampling on it. So I will go into, up in the top on that menu bar, we shall go into sampling. Now this is not the advanced course, so we're not going into all the different types of sampling, but roughly you've got 3 basic kinds of sampling that we deal with normally as auditors. Attribute sampling, monetary unit sampling, and variable sampling. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at random selection, and it says, okay, how many do you want to pick? Well, we'll pick 10. We want a sample of 10. Not quite sure why you'd want a sample of 10, but that's what we'll call it. And we'll call the file sample of customers. Okay. Now, that's fine, but which fields do we want? Well, we'll take them all. I could say clear all and then pick them up one by one, or I could say include all. So we're happy with all. So I want a seed, random number seed. This is for the random number generator. It's going to look somewhere between 1 and 341. So if I say OK, there's 10 chosen randomly using my random number selector out of my customer base. Okay. And I can then go off and check those, etc. Everyone happy so far? If you're not sure how I did that, let me close it down and just do it again. I'll delete that sample of customers. What we did was we went into sampling. First of all, we were in our customer database, not our duplicates, not our non-duplicates, in the customer database. I'm going to go into sampling. I'm going to go into random sampling. I want 10 records chosen at random. Out of my full population, I could change the population size, and I'm going to call it sample of customers. And there's my sample of 10. I could now print those out and go and check. We've got credit limits. I can go and say, okay, show me the authorization documents for Georges Lars, for particularly for, who's my high value here? Perhaps these two. Okay. Anthony McCrabb and Maria Cortez. And pick those ones out. And then show me the authorization for giving them that credit limit. Remember where we started from. What is it you want to know? If I want to know who the high value credit limits are, then I'm not going to use random sampling. If I want to look at a few and draw conclusions about the whole population, then I'm going to use sampling. If I wanted just to look at the high value ones, remember, all I would do is go into my credit limit and pick up my credit limit descending, and there's my high value ones. So I didn't need to sample, I've got those. But if I check those, I cannot then draw conclusions about everyone. I can only draw conclusions about those because I didn't sample randomly. Okay. If you wish to draw conclusions about many by looking at a few, you have no choice. You have to follow certain rules. Okay, happy. Thrilled and excited, I can tell by the vibration coming over the wires. Okay. Let's take a look at extracting some values. I'll kill off that index, so I'm back to my full database. And this time I want to say data, and I'm going to extract. And I'm going to do a direct extract, and I'm going to pick up all of those high value credit limits. So the file name, I'm going to give it is going to be large credit limits. Okay, so I'm going to extract from my full customer database a file only containing those large credit limits. Now how do I get that? Well, in the middle you'll see what looks like a little calculator. That's my equation editor, and if I click on it, you may recognize this screen. So we're back to our equation editor, and this time I want to build it with the credit limit, which is down at the bottom here. Double click on that, and I want it greater than or equal to, and that's that one there. So I can click on that once, and this is numeric, so I don't need those quotations around it. I can put in my 30,000 for argument's sake. I want to see any credit limit greater than 30,000. Now if by any chance I make a mistake and say 30,000 at that and try and tick it, it will say mismatch field type. So it's told me right away that I'm trying to do based on the type of field. This is a numeric field, and I'm trying to do it as an alpha field. So if I take out those two quotations, that should now work. If I'm not sure, I can always validate, and it says I now have a valid equation. So I'm happy. I will now tick it, and it's now saying extract from all records, or I could do it from a range, but from all records, anyone with a credit limit greater than 30,000 or equal to 30,000, and put it into a file called large credit limits. And when I'm happy with that, I can say OK. And we've got our large credit limits. If I take it and I wanted it even bigger, I can go into that large credit limit. I'll close off and delete the large credit limit file. Because I'm going to get myself confused if I don't. And this time I'll go in and say I'm going to extract large credit limits. And this time I'm going to make it where the credit limit is greater than or equal to 300,000. That should be okay. It is. Fine. I'll take that one. And we've got a much smaller sample. Okay. Now, what was wrong with that? From an audit perspective, what I did, remember, I went in on my data and I extracted to my file called large credit limits. I'll make it different now. Large-ish credit limits. For greater than 30,000. and I ended up with 61 records. And what I did, which an auditor shouldn't do, is then look at that and say, 61, ooh, that's an awful lot. Okay, let me try that for 300,000. Okay, we only got 5 for 300,000. So we've got large credit limits, we've only got 300, we've only got 5. Largish, we've got 61. I'll take the large and just check them. Remember, you start off with what is it you want to know. And if the criteria is we classify a large credit limit as anything over 30,000, then that's what I've got and that's what I'm stuck with. And I cannot then turn around and say, oh, that's too many. Let me try and pare it down a bit. Because you're now altering your audit criteria to fit the data.